factoring is the most heavily tested topic on the final exam. So here we go. When a problem says factor completely, that means you need to factor until it cannot be factored anymore. So sometimes that means that you need to factor out a GCF first. Sometimes there's not a GCF, but you always need to check for a GCF first and then just keep factoring, right? Whether or not there is a GCF. Okay, so a GCF is a number that multiplies to each term. So let's check it out. Is there a number that multiplies to 6, 24, and 30? And you might think 2 or 3. And those would be correct, but they're actually not the greatest common factor because the largest number that multiplies to 6, 24, and 30 is actually the number 6. Okay, so I would just get in the habit of just always taking the smallest number and just checking. Does 6 multiply 24? Oh, it does. Does 6 multiply 30? It does. And this is a great use for the multiplication table. There's a multiplication table on your toolbar, on your practice final and your final. So I'm going to take out a GCF of 6 right here. And so 6 times what is 6x squared? Oh, 6 times x squared is 6x squared. 6 times what is 24x? Well, 6 times 4 is 24. And if this is, there's an x here, right? The 6 times 4x is 24x. And 6 times what is negative 30? Negative 5. Okay, so I've done the GCF, and now I just have to check, like, can I keep going? I sure can, right? Look, this is sort of our basic format where we need two numbers that multiply to this and add to this. Right, these two numbers multiply to x squared, so that's just x and x. What are two numbers that multiply to negative 5 and add to 4? So there's only two numbers that multiply to 5, and that's 5 and 1. And in terms of signs, in order to multiply to a negative 5, we need to have one positive, one negative. If I want them to add to a positive 4, I'm going to make my larger number, the 5, positive, and the smaller one, negative. So 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. 5 minus 1 is 4. Okay, so here's my answer. Make sure when you are typing it in the practice test and the test that you don't forget to type this. Got to type the GCF. Okay. Here, now this one, I notice is holding a lot of people up. It actually, I think, is easier than some of the other ones, but you just maybe not as familiar looking. But again, we ask ourselves, is there a GCF? Is there a number that multiplies to 9 and 27x? And the answer is, yeah, there is. The number 9, right? 9 multiplies to 9, and 9 also multiplies to 27. So I'm going to factor out a 9. And 9 times what is 9, right? 9 times what is 9? Oh, 9 times 1 is 9. And then 9 times what is negative 27x? Well, not a positive times a negative is a negative. 9 times 3 is 27. And then because there's an x here, let's throw an x on there. Okay, and then I look like, is there anything more I can factor? Like, what can I multiply to get 1 minus 3x? And the answer is, nothing. You're done. Just take out the 9. Okay, this one. This is a very common situation that comes up a lot in Algebra 2. It's really important for us to feel comfortable with it. Remember that this is the same as this. And so when I'm factoring something like this times this has to equal this. And this term times this term has to equal this term. And then remember, this times this plus this times this has to equal this middle term. And the thing is, this middle term is 0. So the way that I can make this happen where it equals 0 is I'm going to make this positive and this negative, and these two terms are going to be the same, and then they're going to cancel out. So the question is, what term times itself, these are going to be the same, equals 16x squared? Well, 4 times 4 is 16. And I want it to be 16x squared, so 4x times 4x is 16x squared. Now, 49, same question. What number times itself is 49? Again, multiplication table is great for this. You can just look right along the diagonal. You can find 16 on the diagonal where it says 4 times 4. You can find 49 on the diagonal where it says 7 times 7. So this is going to be 7 and 7. Okay, and this is the answer. This is the whole answer. And remember what happens, right? 4x times 4x is 16x squared. 4x times negative 7, that's negative 28, positive 28. Those are going to cancel. And then 7 times negative 7 is negative 49. So this is my answer. Okay. This one, hey, don't get tripped up by the hard ones. This is an easy one. What are two numbers that multiply to 56 and add to 15? Feel free to use your multiplication chart, but those numbers are 7 and 8. Okay, and this is it. This is the whole answer. Okay, notice there's no equal sign here. I'm just asked to factor. That's it. There's nothing more to do. Okay, now, there's also two questions on the test that ask you to solve by factoring. So that's a little bit of a different situation where I have an equals 0 and it's an equation. Okay, so the first thing that the test is going to ask you for is factored form. So you're going to factor this. Okay, now factored form has an equal 0, so make sure you type it. But this is that same deal. I'm going to multiply to negative 60 and add to 4. And what are those two numbers? Let's see. Numbers that multiply to negative has to be positive and negative. What are some numbers that multiply to 60? 6 times 10. 12 times 5 is 60. Let's see. 4 times 15 is 60, right? There's actually a lot of possibilities. But what I'm looking for, if one's going to be positive and one's going to be negative, these numbers are going to subtract. Okay, so which pair of these numbers is going to subtract to get me 4? And the answer is 6 and 10. Okay, now if I wanted to add to negative 4, I need to make my larger number negative, so I'm going to make the 10 negative and the 6 positive. So here's factored form. And then I need to solve. So remember, this is a number times a number equals 0. So either this number equals 0 or this number equals 0. And one of my answers is negative 6. And one of my answers is 10. And I actually didn't look. I should actually wait. Here's why. Look, I'm going to wait until I get both answers, and I'm going to look. And I'm going to list them smaller to larger. So this number is negative. That's definitely going to be smaller. And this number is my larger answer. All right, let's solve by factoring one more. Okay, this one, same sort of layout, right? But remember, this times this equals this, right? This is, we talked about this up here. Okay, this times this equals this, and then this times this plus this times this equals that. Okay, so there's only two pairs of numbers that multiplies to 5, so this is going to be 5x and x. Now, pairs of numbers that multiply to 30. Okay, let's see. This could be 2 times 15, 3 times 10, 5 times 6. All right, let's try, I don't know. Let's try 5 and 6 first, okay? Now, they can multiply to negative 30, so I'm going to lightly write positive and negative. And let's try, I'm going to put 6 and 5. So let's see, that's 5x times negative 5. That's negative 25x plus 6x. That doesn't equal 47. Okay, let's try switching the 6 and the 5. This is negative 30x plus 5x. That doesn't equal 47 either. Okay, I tried 5 and 6 both ways. Let's try 3 and 10. Okay, this is 5x times negative 10. That's negative 50x plus 3x. Ooh. Okay, this actually equals negative 47x. So I want it to equal positive 47x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my signs. And then this is going to be 5x times 10. That's positive 50x minus 3x equals 47x. Perfect. So this is my factored form. That one's correct. That one's ready to go. And now I can go ahead and solve. So either this number equals 0 or this number equals 0. This one's easier to solve. Let's do that one first. So one solution is negative 10. And the other solution is 3 over 5. Now, if you're more comfortable with decimals, that's totally fine. Look, you can just divide 3 divided by 5 in your calculator. Edulastic will accept either. So this is either 3 over 5 or 0.6. Either way, you do need to list them in order from smaller to larger. The negative answer is the smaller answer. And then this is the larger answer. All right, there's factoring.